this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how to use a slider in Objective-C and how to get the value from it. And so the very first thing we're going to do is create a new project in Xcode, and we're going to make it a single view application, and we're going to call it slider demo. You can call it anything you want. You can also use any prefixes or anything like that. Let's hit next and create. Okay, very first thing we're going to do is come into the main storyboard, and now we can get rid of everything at the side so we have more room. And the very first thing we're going to do is go and find a slider. There it is. And you can, with the slider, there's a lot you can do to customize the slider. Obviously you can stretch it and do things like that, but you can also, if you look over here in the attributes, there's a ton of things that you can do. You can make it so it'll the alignment will change. You can make it where you can change alignment both horizontally or vertically. You can do things like changing the tint. So you could have, say, like red on the left-hand side and black on the right-hand side. You can, pretty much do anything you want like that. So like we can come and switch the tint up, and you can see now that that's red. And you can change this one up and add a background, which I don't want to do because that's pretty ugly. So hit undo. And so there's a lot of different things. You can even come up and create images. So you can customize it so you could have, like a turtle on the left-hand side if it's slow, and then a rabbit on the right-hand side, or anything really that you want that would that you want to customize it with. We're going to go just with the basic one because the main thing I'm wanting to show you is how to grab the value from that and how to do it dynamically. So this is the very first thing, and next thing we're going to do is grab a label because we want to show what the value is. I'm going to stretch it, and then I'm going to center it, and we'll even give it a different color and change the size just a little bit. Okay, and then we'll get rid of this so it actually comes up as you can't even see it. And now we will open up the attributes, now we'll open up the code and we'll hide the attributes inspector so we have a little bit more room here. And we're going to get into our my view controller H. And by the way, the my, that's because I gave it a class prefix. If you did not do a prefix, it would just say view controller. So don't be worried if yours doesn't say that. Okay, the very first thing we're going to do is click on our label and click Control and just drag that right in here. And the name of this is just going to be my label, pretty standard. And storage, we're going to go with strong, and you can see all the other ones are set up correctly. So this creates a property. It's strong, non-atomic, which don't worry if you don't know what those mean. We'll get in those in a later tutorial, or earlier, depending on what order you're watching these. And this is an Iboutlet. A Iboutlet means it's something that is actually in the view that we're changing. So just be aware that that's what Iboutlet stands for. Anytime you're dealing with any labels or anything like that, they're called Iboutlets. If you're dealing, and you'll see this in a second, if you're dealing with something that's a method, such as a slider, it's going to be called an IB action. And then the type is UI label, because it's a UI label type, and then we're calling it my label. So we'll switch over into my view controller, and you'll see this is pretty much just the standard standard setup. And now we're going to click on this and click Control, and then just drag it right here, and we're going to call it slider change. All the other things are all good. Hit connect, and it gives us our stub. Now we can actually tell it what we want the slider to do. So we're going to start off first by talking to UI slider, or having UI slider type, and we're going to give it a name. So this is how we're going to get our value, and this is called a ivar because it's a local variable. This only, as far as the scope's concerned, this only exists inside of this IBAction method. So we're just going to call it slider, and to get the value, we're going to give it the type UI slider, and give it asterisk, and then talk to the sender. Now, if that doesn't make a lot of sense, just know that sender is the method that this is using. So we're essentially grabbing whatever value is being passed to the sender from the label, and we're storing it inside this slider variable. So that's how that one's working. And then we want to create one more variable, and this is where we're going to be storing the value, and it's of type NSString, and so we give it a pointer, and we're going to call this new value. And now we need to tell the new value what it's going to do, so we're going to do new value NSString, and we're going to want to do string with format. And now in the string with format, we want to set it up so that it's actually going to take a floating point value, because the value that's passed back is it's a decimal. So whenever you hear floating point, that means decimal. And so we're giving it this string, and then we're going to be passing in slider.value. So essentially, just to kind of summarize what this is, we're creating a new, or we're setting the value of what this new value is. And in order to do it, we're saying NSString because that's what the type is. And then we're creating this right here, which is our floating point value, but we're storing it inside of a string, and we're doing string with format, which allows us to put this F, and well, it's really this %sign and F, which stands for a floating point value. You hit comma afterwards and slider value. So this F is going to look automatically at whatever the slider value is, and then it's going to store all of that inside a new value. And then the last thing that we have to do is just type self.myLabel.text. So we're setting the label of the text, and then we're storing, we're giving it new value. And so let's see if this works. Okay, it says build succeeded, so that's good. Pops up, and the label's hidden the way we want. And now as you move this, you see that it dynamically changes, and by default it starts at 0 and goes all the way up to 1. Now if you want to change this, so say you wanted to make it 1 to 100 or 0 to 100, that part's pretty easy. So we're going to bring up the attributes inspector again, and it's right here in this slider value. So you can set the beginning, which we're going to start at 1, and then the end, which we're going to start at 100. And you can also start, you can put what the default is. So you can say I want it to start at 1, or in this case I want it to start at 75, just so you can see how that looks. So you can see this is about 3/4 of the way there. Now if I'm going to hit save and run it again, now you'll see it starts at 75, and if I click it, now it adjusts, goes all the way down to 1 and all the way to 100, just like we've changed it. If you're wondering why you're getting 6 decimals here, that's what the Objective-C default is, and so it's actually pretty complicated to take those decimals away. Well, it's complicated in the sense that it would take more than about 3 or 4 minutes to do. If you do want to do that, what you will need to do is just create a stepper function. And what the stepper does is it essentially just eliminates these decimals and it just skips. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to whatever you want your endpoint to be. So there's plenty of documentation. It's not that difficult. It just takes more time than this video would allow. But that's pretty much it. You now know how to use a slider in Objective-C and how to get the value and set some defaults and customize the design. So good job, and as always, let me know if you have any questions at all.